Good evening. This is James Exum, also known as Sakshi, coming to you from my home in South Austin, Texas. It's December the 1st, a little chilly here in the old Austin town, and it's approximately 7:05 in the evening, 7:05 p.m. I'm about to narrate my latest written discourse, which I've written in the last few hours, and it's my new video on YouTube, of course. My main subject matter on YouTube has been in the past dealing with yoga philosophy. And it has taken a couple of tangents, gone off on different tangents here and there, the latest being the political climate in the United States and how I believe that Vishnu, who is the god of preservation, has who is the god of preservation, has started interacting or sending his avatar to the earth to deal with the imbalance of karma in the American political arena. Of course, you have Brahman, who is the creator, you have Vishnu, the preserver, and you have Shiva, the destroyer. The reason Vishnu is doing this, in my heart of hearts, I truly believe it's happening now because I'm seeing it all over since I would say the middle of last month, or maybe a bit earlier, or maybe a bit later. But the reason I think it's happening is because in the Vedic wisdom, the books having to do with early yoga philosophy, it's written that when things are out of kilter, out of pica, out of whack in the earth, then Vishnu will send his avatars to the earth to right the wrongs of karma, bad karma, and bring the earth and the actors involved in the misalignment of karma to justice, so to speak. And if you've been following the headlines in the newspaper in the last week or so, you see that this is actually happening. Well, what I find remarkable and coincidental is I started these videos just about the time this change happened. Now, I'm not saying I'm a prophet, because I am not. I'm a mere old yogi, or yogan, as they're called. A yogi is just simply a person well versed in the literature and the philosophy and the activities of yoga. Most Westerners think of yoga as the studio, the yoga mat, the different positions that are held. In other words, physical exercise. This is how I started out in the early 70s, and then later I transitioned over to the philosophy of yoga, the writings of yoga, the great works of yoga. And that's what I've concentrated on over the last, I'd say, close to 45 years now. And I consider myself a yoga philosopher. There's no degree in that, there's no status in that. It's just simply what I believe to be true. So I was speaking of going off on tangents, which you could have considered what I just did a tangent, but I don't believe it to be, because it falls in line with what I'm about to say. And so, as I said, I got into yoga karma being acted out on a global and national scale here in the US of A, the United States of America, over the last couple of weeks, which falls in line exactly with what Vishnu would have assigned his avatars and his chosen workers, so to speak, to do in his name, to balance karma. We need to do that. Dharma, karma need to stay on the right path. Excuse me a second. So in my latest discourse that I wrote, like I said, this afternoon, I titled it, I decided to write on the subject of politics, which I did not utilize that much in my last video, which was recorded yesterday, and I believe in the one before that. But this, I'm trying to stay on yoga, this philosophy of yoga, and yet use contemporary situations to incorporate the wisdom of yoga into the lectures I'm doing, having to do with modern happenings in the world. And so I found this interesting path, this new direction, so to speak, and that's what I created this afternoon. Because, as you well know, a lot of people are having problems with dealing with the economy because of inflation and the tariffs, and regardless of what the people in power say now, and economics and all of that, Secretary of Labor, Secretary of this, Secretary of that, they're all saying it's a golden age, and they're all saying prices are going down, and we know this is just plain out hooey, as we used to say as when I was a boy, it's just hooey, which is a nice way of saying BS. And it is BS, because I know when I order my food, I have it home delivered. I know when I order my food from my local grocery store that I've been going to since 1970 here in Austin. It's very famous. I'm not going to plug it and give it its name, give you its name, but if you're from the Austin area, you know what I'm talking about. It's a major chain out of San Antonio. It's an old Austin business. So when I was thinking this afternoon, what will my discourse of the day be for this evening, I decided on the subject of inflation and how yoga teaches us to integrate the philosophy of yoga and the teachings of some of the great commentators on yoga, the early commentators. I'm going back to my old standby, who was Sankara, who's an 8th century commentator, writer, and theologian, so to speak. But yoga is not a religion. Yoga is a science. So I'm falling back on the great commentator, Sankara. You can look him up. He's in Wikipedia. Very important person in the history of yoga. And I went back to him, researched, and got some spiritual and practical approaches for economic stability in the populace of the United States' personal life. We need to learn how to be economically resilient and maintain equanimity at the same time, even though we're in dire straits. And this I was able to accomplish, and it took me a little while to create this paper, this work. But I'll tell you this, I really liked the way it came out, so now I'm going to share it with you, if you don't mind. And I have it on my screen on my computer. That's when you see me turn this way, I'm looking at my computer screen. Actually, I'm looking at a monitor that's connected to my computer. It's with a coaxial cable. It's a much larger screen because I'm older and have eye problems, as you can see. Even though my eyes are very good, I still have problems with that light coming off that screen. That's a result of dealing with cataracts for several years. I'm light sensitive, photosensitivity they call it. And that's why I wear these glasses. They're rather special. A little bit of magnetism, well, a little bit of magnetism into it. They tend to increase the presence of my personality. So a little magnetism there, charm, or whatever you want to call it. But they also are blue lenses. They help filter out the blue light, so to speak. So the title of this discourse is Maintaining Stability in an Inflated Economy. And that's the main title. And it goes on to say, a guide integrating yoga philosophy, Sankara's teachings, and Vedic wisdom. What are the Vedas? They're the great writings of yoga, the early writings of the Mahabharata, the Rig Veda, and on and on and on. You can look all this up. I'm not here to teach yoga history. You can go back to some of my earliest videos, and I think there's a 5 or 6 part set of videos in there that deal with yoga history. And you're welcome to look at any of these. I think this will be number 72, 3, or 4 of my videos I've produced since around May the 15th of this year. I've been a busy beaver, so to speak. I like writing. I've been writing for years. I've written several books. And now I am writing my own script, so to speak, for narration on my YouTube channel, which is it's youtube.com, James Exum, Sakshi, S-A-K-S-H-I. You say, well, what is Sakshi? Sakshi is an old Sanskrit word. It means the witness, and it's the name I have endowed to my soul, because my soul is eternal as opposed to just for the time we're here on the earth. And my soul, I wanted to give it a name, and so I've given it Sakshi. You're welcome to name your soul. Excuse me a second, my bird is waking up. I need to calm him. Now, I love that bird. He's a blue-eyed sulphur-winged cockatoo, and he's been with me for years and years. He just turned 20 years old this year. And he just wants to come out and be with me, but I'm trying to record, so that's not a possibility to have him out here and record at the same time. Besides, it's his sleep time. Excuse me again. It's not easy being the parent of a male cockatoo when you're 75 years old. But he's my boon companion, and I do love him. Excuse the interruptions. Okay, back to the video. So the second part of the title is a guide integrating yoga philosophy, utilizing Sankara's teachings and Vedic wisdom, spiritual and practical approaches for economic resilience. Now, when we say spiritual here, we're talking about the spirit, the soul. We're not talking about religious, spiritual commentary. So let's jump into this. What we need, the main point of this paper is teaching my viewers. I don't call you followers. I have very few followers. I think I have 10, but I've had almost 1,700 views. So, I'm not doing this. I do not receive 1 ounce of profit from YouTube. Not one. I haven't applied for it. I don't receive it. I'm not interested in it. What I'm interested in is spreading the philosophy of yoga. So the introduction is finding steadiness amid economic inflation. Well, we know that's going on, don't we? I'm going to move this up here so I'll have room for my little mouse here so I can kind of move up and down on my screen. Now, there we go. Pretty good. Okay, so economic inflation is a reality that affects individuals and communities across the globe. Well, we know this. Prices rise, purchasing powers decrease, and uncertainty often becomes a companion in daily life. Well, thanks to the present administration, this is what we're experiencing. I'm talking about political administration. I'm talking about the boys in the White House and the boys in the Congress that follow the leader, so to speak, even though he doesn't seem to know what the hell he's doing. In such times, maintaining one's status quo, preserving personal stability and well-being, can seem daunting, yet ancient wisdom traditions offer guidance not only for surviving adversity, but thriving in it. This guide explores how yoga philosophy, Sankara's teachings, and Vedic references can illuminate pathways for resilience, equanimity, and thoughtful action in an inflated economy. What I'm going to throw in there, part of this is my commentary, or will be. I take time out here and there from reading to give commentary on what I've read and what I've written. They're one and the same, and that's also part of this exploration that you are hearing and seeing tonight. Understanding inflation, the challenges to personal stability. Inflation refers to the general increase in prices and fall in the purchasing value of money. For many, this means stretched budgets, reevaluated priorities, and heightened anxiety about the future. Well, this is a national problem that we're all dealing with. I live in a 55 plus community, and there's a lot of misery in this complex because these people are on fixed income, just like I am. I made some wonderful investments since I retired, more since I retired than when I was in business, and owned several businesses here in Austin, and they thrived and did very well. But now that I'm retired, because of my Parkinsonian-like disease, I've been able to spend more time studying markets and making proper investments, and I'm not bragging here, but I have fared quite well. The challenge is not only financial, but psychological and emotional. How can one remain steady when the external environment is in flux? The answer perhaps lies as much in inner transformation as an external adaptation. I'm a poet also, so sometimes I throw in these little automatopoeias and sometimes these little couplets, and have more of a couplet there than automatopoeia, babbling brook and such and such. Yoga philosophy, cultivating equanimity and balance. Yoga at its core is the science of union. That's what it means, union, bringing harmony to body, mind, and spirit. The Bhagavad Gita, the great book, the great book is the Mahabharata, but Bhagavad Gita, a key yogic text, teaches us yoga is equanimity. Now, what I've done here, I wanted to give you a reference to what I'm about to say. So I went online and I found in the Gita online, I own several wonderful copies here in my library, along with a wonderful library of Vedic books. Remember, Vedic has to do with the philosophy of yoga, the teachings. And I took a sutra out of there. A sutra is like a paragraph, okay? But it maintains a constant subject through the paragraph. And it may be linked to the next paragraph, but it may not be linked. It can stand independently. And this is what we're dealing with here. Excuse me again. And so I took this out. Now, this paragraph, this sutra, I will try to pronounce. I'm not a linguistic expert. I've never been taught Sanskrit, the correct pronunciation. I've just used Google to look up certain words and how they're pronounced, and that's what I maintain and retain and put my faith in, so to speak. And here's how this sutra reads. It says, Yoga Satha, that means being steadfast in yoga. Yoga is another word for yoga without the A on the end. Kuru, perform. Karmani, duties. Sangwam, attachment. Tai Aktava, having abandoned. Da Anajaga, which is having abandoned. Arjun, which is Siddha Asidya, in success and failure. Sama, equiposed. Bhattva, becoming. Samatva, equanimity. Yoga, yoga. And Uvati is called. And you go, well, that sounds nice and it sounds impressive. You can do that and say those words and understand the meaning of them and translate them. And, well, that's part of my work and my history in this field. The part I want us to concentrate on here is the Samatva Yoga Ukyate. Samatva Yoga Uvati. Uvati, excuse me. Equanimity means remaining calm and balanced regardless of circumstance. This is what I'm trying to not teach, pass on to you tonight. If you're interested in how to stay calm and collected and balanced in an inflationary cycle we're dealing with at this point in time, as long as the current administration is in power. Equanimity means remaining calm and balanced regardless of circumstance, an essential skill when facing economic uncertainty. Well, it's out there. No matter what the talking points are coming out of Washington and out of the majority in Congress at this moment. But the game is shifting, as you well know. The karma is there's an old Southern saying, the chickens have come home to roost, and that's not a saying a lot of young people know, I'm sure. My group of listeners are mostly 60 and older. So if you're young and you're listening to this, you can look that up. It's an urban phrase. It just means your comeuppance is coming. In other words, the scales of justice are balancing. Okay, and this phrase is quoted from, now this phrase, equanimity means remaining calm and balanced regardless of circumstances. And this phrase, an essential skill when facing economic uncertainty. This phrase is quoted from the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, verse 48, as the closing of that sutra's last 3 words. There we go. Practicing yoga is not only about physical postures, but about cultivating awareness. Well, when you come visit me, you won't be seeing me do it at headstands. I did it in my youth. And I even continued that practice for several years, up to, I think, till I was 50 or 55 years old. I was standing on my head, but only on my birthday, which is kind of silly. I could have broken my neck easily. Got a little heavier in those days. I'm still heavy, but I'm still under 160, and I'm happy with that. As practicing yoga, not only a physical postures, but about cultivating awareness and steadfastness. In times of inflation, the yogic principle of aparagri, aha, non-possessiveness, encourages us to let go of excessive attachment to material goods and outcomes. Instead, we can focus on what truly sustains us: health, relationships, and inner peace. Well, bless my soul if that isn't the solution for a lot of people, if they'll only shift their inner dynamics to go that direction. As Patanjali's Yoga Sutra, now he's another great writer, sort of like our friend Sankara. When one is steadfast in non-possessiveness, knowledge of the purpose of existence is revealed. That bears repeating. When one is steadfast in non-possessiveness, knowledge of the purpose of existence is revealed. This insight, and that's a wonderful insight, can help us see beyond immediate financial concerns and maintain proper perspective. We'll go back to Sankara now. Sankara's teachings of non-attachment and wisdom in adversity are as such. Adi Shankara, that's his first name, Adi, Adisankara. Adi Shankara, 2 different words. The renowned philosopher and proponent of Advaita Vedanta emphasizes the importance of viveka, which is discernment, and viraja, which is non-attachment. In his classical work, the Viveka Chudamani, Sankara writes, that's the crown jewel. That's what that means. I believe something of that nature, the crown jewel. Sankara writes, the mind that is unattached to objects and is free from longing attains lasting peace. The mind that is unattached to objects and is free from longing attains peace. And that's where viveka, discernment, and viraja, non-attachment, come in. During economic inflation, Shankara's teachings invite us to practice discernment, recognizing what is essential and what is fleeting. By cultivating non-attachment, we avoid being swept away by fear and desire, instead anchoring ourselves in wisdom and contentment. Anchoring ourselves. Sankara reminds us the wise man does not grieve for what is lost, nor rejoice in what is found or gained. This perspective can help us navigate financial fluctuations with grace, making thoughtful decisions, and being driven by anxiety of impulse. Now, I very seldom suggest this, but I'm going to go ahead and do this anyway, because this is one of the most important topics I've written on in several videos, if not the most important topic for citizens of the United States right now, especially older people that are on fixed incomes. So I would propose, and you don't have to do it, I would propose you go back and listen to this video more than once, at your leisure, if you want, and you will see what I'm talking about. It's going to take a couple of hearings, or maybe 2 or 3, to really let what I'm trying to teach or reach you with sink in. This perspective can help us navigate financial fluctuations with grace, making thoughtful decisions without being driven by anxiety or impulse. So I'm trying to show you the solution to that. Vedic references, quotes, and guidance for resilience. The Vedas, amongst the oldest spiritual texts, offer timeless guidance for resilience and steadfastness. Also, let me back up just for a minor second. Also, when you look at this video, and most of them really, I would suggest you turn on the closed caption, and that way you can read what I'm saying as opposed to just hearing it. And those two together seem to work better for older folks and even students, younger folks. I'm not saying I'm creating this just for older folks. It just happens that's who my mainstay audience has turned out to be. Another Vedic principle is contentment, and that's Santosha, Santosha. As the Atharva Veda states, contentment is the greatest wealth. Well, I hope I seem content to you. I'm not acting, I'm just being me. That's why I say my bird's acting up. Excuse me for a second. And in my last video, I sneezed and had to pause and come back, and on and on and on. If you watch enough of these, you'll see it's me. It's not. This is the same person you'll meet down at the lobby of my retirement community or over 55 community. This is the same person you'll see over at the VA when I'm having a doctor's visit. In other words, if you meet someone that changes their persona under different public and private circumstances, that person's not as stable as you would want them to be, and usually in their words and actions follow that instability. I hope I come across as the same person most time. I will admit that in my first couple of videos I was a bit stuffy. I mean, it was the starched shirt and the creases, but that's because I was taught as a child when you go to a public situation, you want to dress for the occasion. But I'm an old yogi, I don't have to impress anyone, so now I'm becoming more comfortable in my skin, so to speak. The Yagar Veda teaches, that's Y-A-J-U-R, Veda teaches, may we move forward with strength, may we gain wisdom and understanding. In challenging times, seeking knowledge and practical skills can empower us to adapt without losing our inner composure. And that's really the potatoes and meat of this whole discourse I'm reading to you that I wrote earlier, as I said, is I'm seeking to give you the knowledge and practical skills that will empower you to adapt without losing your inner composure to the current climate and the inflationary world we're in at this point, inflationary country we're in at this point. Another Vedic principle is contentment, Santosha, as I said, and the Atharva Veda states contentment is the greatest wealth. By appreciating what we have and reducing unnecessary desires, we find stability even when external conditions are less favorable. Practical steps, and here we go. One, they fall under some bullet points, or in this case, they're enumerated. Practical mindful spending. These I will copy and paste in the descriptive section of the video once it's launched onto YouTube. I will include these in after my title box. I will go down to my information box, and this I'll put in there for you so you can, at your leisure, you can read these. Practical mindful spending. Apply the yogic principle of non-possessiveness by distinguishing between needs and wants. Create a budget that prioritizes essentials and cultivate gratitude for what you have. You know, when you're in a good political and economic environment, sometimes you will accidentally buy something you've already got in your fridge or in your pantry, and you go, oh, well, I'll use it eventually, and you do. But when the economy tightens up, and when you need to do the same thing we do in leaner times. You need to tighten your belt, and you also need to tighten the list of what you're going to buy on a weekly. I buy weekly. What you're going to buy on a weekly basis from your supplier, and that gives you more cash flow. That's what I do. That's what hopefully you will learn to do if you're not already doing that. So cultivate inner equanimity, integrate yoga practice such as meditation and breath work to foster calmness and resilience. In other words, if you're feeling anxious, just say, man, I am feeling anxious. Or a woman, I am feeling anxious. And just stop. And it's the old saying, count to 10, take a breather, take several deep breaths. This invigorates the oxygen in the blood system and carries it to the brain and allows the brain to calm down. When you sleep, you breathe slower, and that's why you're in a tranquil sleep if everything's working right in the system. But if you take troubles to bed with you, well, I can't say it'll work that way. Seek knowledge and adaptability. Embrace the Vedic call for learning. Well, if you come to my videos, that's answering the Vedic call for learning. Explore new skills, financial literacy, and creative ways to manage resources. Financial literacy is very important. If you're at home and you're my over 60 crowd, a lot of us are retired, then you have time to Google things and find out what's going on in the stock market, how it may be manipulated, and the bond market may be benefiting from the manipulation of the stock market, and so on and so forth. Embrace non-attachment. Remember Sankara's teaching. Avoid excessive identification with material possessions or outcomes. Focus on values such as your relationships with friends and family, and then go back and work on your personal growth, just like you did when you were in college or graduating from high school. You were working on developing yourself as a human being in those days. Well, you're retired maybe or not, but you can always go back to the practice of increasing your personal growth. Connect with the community, share knowledge, very important. Share little tips you picked up or little hacks, they call them nowadays, that you're utilizing to kind of counterbalance what's happening with your economy and your spending budget. In the old days, I was spending X amount per week, and now, believe it or not, even though things have gotten more expensive, I'm spending X amount per week minus 10 to 20%. I compensated. I said, they're going to charge me more, then I'll buy less, and I'll get by on less. That's one of the secrets. It's not a secret, that's one of the strategies. Focus on values, relationships, and personal growth. Connect with the community, share knowledge, support, and resources with others, And this can foster a collective, national and communal, local resilience. Reflect on Vedic wisdom. Use Vedic quotes and teachings as daily affirmations. For example, contentment is the greatest wealth, and yoga is union. Yoga is equanimity. It's also the balance of union. Now we're down to the conclusion, thank goodness. This is one of my longer ones. I've been doing 15, 20, and 30-minute ones. This looks like it may go to 35 or 40 minutes. I'm trying to keep it under 30. Well, it looks like, I'll just say I'm trying to keep it under 40. Conclusion, integrating spiritual and practical approaches. Navigating an inflated economy requires more than just financial tactics. It calls for inner strength, clarity, and compassion. By integrating yoga philosophy, Sankara's wisdom, and Vedic guidance, and I'll humbly say my commentaries, reading from my own work, we can maintain our status quo not only in material terms, but in our peace of mind and spiritual fulfillment. As the Bhagavad Gita assures, one who is content with whatever comes his way, free from dualities, without envy, is steady in wisdom. Oh, that's a wonderful phrase. May these teachings inspire you to find balance, resilience, and hope, regardless of economic circumstances. And there it is. There's where it ends. So I always say, be good to yourself. Be good to your family and friends. Be good to your neighbors. Be good to strangers. And who knows, pretty soon we may be out of this mess, because my other videos have been saying that karma is on the job. I truly believe that in my heart and soul. So be good to yourself, and if you get a chance, come back. If you liked this video, please share it with friends and family. I'm not looking for those little bells for you to ring. I don't even put those on my site. But you can word of mouth, so to speak. If you didn't like it, that's okay too. I don't judge, and hopefully I won't be judged too impartially. And but know this: karma is on the job, and you can see it in the headlines every day. The game is shifting back towards normalcy. So good night to you. Thank you again for coming, and I'll talk to you in the next video.